Welcome back. So far in this Getting Started video series, we've set up our project and created a stage component. Now it's time to complete defining our dimension data flow. So let's get started by logging in. So once again, after logging in, you'll be presented with your account's project list. If you don't see the name of the project that you want to be working in the header of this page, then go ahead, select the account that you would like to open by clicking the detail link adjacent to that project, then clicking the Set Current button. Okay, the goal of this project is to complete defining our dimension data flow. If we first jump over to our existing stage component by hovering the Stage menu item and selecting View Existing, we can see that we have one single stage component created. What we want to do now is take the output of this stage component and build all of the remaining steps that are required to load a target dimension, in this case our product dimension. Now we could build those steps one component at a time, and that would be extremely efficient, much more efficient than building them by hand, but there's even a faster way to get this done, and that is by using a standard design pattern. So let's jump over and take a look at the design patterns that we have available. Go ahead and hover the Stage menu item and select New Pattern. This brings you to an inventory of available design patterns. Now we're not going to go through all of these patterns right now, but I do recommend that you take a few minutes, read the descriptions, and become familiar with these different design patterns. These are really some very valuable tools that you need to have in your toolbox. The pattern we're going to use today is the very top one. It's the DP1000 pattern. So I'm going to go ahead and select that pattern. Now the reason I selected this pattern is because I'm trying to load a dimension and I'm starting from a stage component, and I need to make sure that the granularity of that data is correct for loading my target dimension. And that's the things that this particular pattern does. Now this pattern also does some standard things, like it creates a consolidation area, which we call the persistent staging area, or PSA. Load status tracking is going to be applied, and a number of other things. We're not going to go through all the details of the pattern's design today, but I do recommend that you go over to the LeapFrogBI blog site and just search for Foundation Design Pattern, read that post, and it'll really clear up why we're doing each of these steps. You might also want to look for a post there about the persistent staging area if you're not already familiar with this. All right, so let's go ahead and generate this design pattern and see what we end up with. This design pattern, as I mentioned, is expecting a stage component as its source. So the first input that I need to provide is the stage component that I would like to use. I only have one stage component in my project so far, so that's going to be automatically selected for me. Now, there are a number of options here where I can provide a custom name for components and fields in this form. I'm going to accept all of the default values for now. Feel free to change these values if you like, but just for time's sake, I'm going to accept all the defaults. For the connections, such as this PSA destination connection, I'm going to put everything in the location that we defined by our destination connection component. So that's already selected here. Just happens to be that way because it's alphabetical. But if you name this something else, you would want to make sure that you select your destination connection here. For record time, I'm not going to go into detail here, but in LeapFrogBI, we track the record time or the effectiveness of all records in PSA. So here I'm asked to define, well, which field represents the record time? And if you don't have a record time field available, it's saying that you can use the ETL load time as the effective time. And that's what I'm going to do by selecting this expression load time. For the load status tracking, there's really nothing to define. My connection is already selected here as the destination connection. I'm going to select all the defaults, so I'm good there on naming. Same thing with grain verification. Then I'm going to scroll on down here to the dimension definition, and I'll provide a name here, product. Then again, the destination, I'll use the destination connection. The next input here is whether or not I want an unknown member generated. I'll go ahead and have an unknown member generated. That works. And the final thing I need to provide is the natural key of this dimension. Well, my natural key here is going to be the product ID. And if you're following along with this training series, your natural key will be the product ID. And then I'm going to just select any set of these attributes that I want to include, or all of these attributes. What I'm going to do is I'm going to unselect a couple of these IDs because I most likely wouldn't want to expose that to my end users. Same thing with this modified date. I don't need that either at this point, in my target dimension at least. Okay, so we've provided all of the inputs that we need to provide. Now we can go ahead and click that Generate Design Pattern button, and that's exactly what's going to happen. LeapFrogBI is going to take your inputs, join that up with the selected stage components output, and then generate all of the lineage along the way. And after we're done, we're going to go back and take a look at exactly what was generated, because it's going to be important that you're able to go back into the details of that data flow and make any changes that you might want to make. Okay, so the design pattern is complete. Let's go ahead and click on this source component button, and that's going to link us back over to that stage component that we already created. But now we can see that when we look at the usage map here, we can see that there's a number of components that have been created for us. Right here is the PSA component. This is the stage component. That's what we already created, so I won't talk about that anymore. Directly downstream of that is this product PSA component. Downstream of that, we have two transformations. First, we're going into it's a DS, which is a dimension source transformation. This is where the unprocessed records will be selected out of PSA. So I'll go ahead and click on this usage map so we can bring this into focus. Then downstream of this DS component, we're going to go into a DG component. This is the grain verification, dimension grain. So if I select that, that's going to bring it into focus. So I can navigate in a number of ways within LeapFrogBI. I can use the top menu to move around different component types, and then I can use the name drop down to select the particular component that I want to focus on, and I can look at the header or the detail. Hopefully you're getting a little bit familiar with how the interface works. Okay, so the last component in this lineage is the dimension itself. So let's take a second and actually inspect this. If I scroll down here, this is a really simple dimension. I have a number of options here, and a lot of the functionality or the way you make these selections is very similar in this platform. For example, if I wanted to change the name of this surrogate key, I would click on Modify Key, and then I could provide any name that I would like to provide here. And then if I look down here, I can see that I'm defining my natural key as the product ID. If I had a composite natural key, then I would bring a number of fields over. I'm going to just stick with what I have for now. And then scrolling down, we can see we have load options. That's more of an advanced topic where we're doing multipass loads on a single dimension, trying to load a single dimension from multiple sources in an asynchronous manner. Then we also have custom scripts. If you want to put in scripts for any reason, you can do so, and then LeapFrogBI will execute them for you. The unknown member that was generated for us, if we want to set custom values, for example, instead of just unknown for the product name in my unknown member record, I can say unknown product and then save that. Then jumping back over to the detail of the component, I'll keep scrolling down here. Slowly change dimensions. If you want to set your slow change dimensions up in a different way, such maybe you want to take these subcategory and category, and if those values change, you want to track history on them, well, you can just push those over to the SCD2 bucket. And yeah, the history will be automatically tracked for those particular attributes. So I can move attributes anywhere between these different buckets, and by doing different things that we're not going to focus on right now, you can generate all different types of SCDs from 0, 1, 2, 3, and so on. All right, I'll leave the two of the attributes in the SCD2 bucket, although we're working with a static source, so we're not actually going to see the values change at this point. I'm scrolling down, and now we have our field list down here once again. We have the ability to create expressions if we like. We can put filters in and so on. So basically we can just define how we want this dimension load to behave. Now I do want to jump over here and click on a particular component, or sorry, field, so you can see here that lineage is always fully tracked, both at the component and at the field level. So if I had a question about how this product name was actually sourced, I can look at this field at any point in the lineage, and then I can jump anywhere else in the lineage, such as right here. I can go all the way back to my stage component, and now I'm actually looking at the stage component field definition for this same field, except upstream. If I cancel out of this, I'll see that now I'm actually all the way back here in my stage component. Okay, so the thing is, we're done in this video. There wasn't a heck of a lot to do. All we really need to do was generate one design pattern. And that's exactly how easy it really is. I built a lot of these projects using LeapFrogBI, and I will tell you with no uncertainty, over 90% of the work I do is automated right here by using the right design patterns. After I'm done generating a project using design patterns, then I'll go in and I'll make whatever tweaks I need to make. That is a heck of a lot faster than trying to build code by hand, or trying to build SSIS packages by hand, or even using LeapFrogBI to build the individual components one at a time. So I recommend that you get familiar with design patterns, but for now, we're done with this video. I'll see you in the next video where we actually deploy this project and load our destination schema.